I had always believed that my marriage was solid. We had been together for more than 8 years, and I genuinely thought Sarah, my wife, was the one I was meant to spend my life with. Like any couple, we experienced our share of ups and downs, but nothing that felt insurmountable. Or so I thought, until the moment I uncovered a secret so unimaginable that it shattered everything. It all began on a Saturday afternoon when I decided to surprise Sarah. I had a rare break from work, so I figured I would treat her to lunch at a charming, quiet cafe by the lake, a place we both adored. It was our special spot, one where we had spent countless weekends together, enjoying each other's company and reflecting on life. I thought it might be a great way to remind her of the joy we once shared and maybe reignite something that felt distant in recent months. But when I entered the cafe, everything changed. There, sitting across from another man, was Sarah. They were laughing together, leaning in toward one another in a way that only happens when two people share a deep connection. My heart sank, and I stood frozen in the doorway, trying to process what I was seeing. The man with her wasn't someone I recognized. He wasn't a friend, a colleague, or anyone I had ever met. I had no clue who he was. Panic set in as my chest tightened. I tried to convince myself I was imagining things, but as I stood there, trying to make sense of it all, Sarah looked up and saw me. For a brief moment, her face showed surprise, followed quickly by guilt. She quickly redirected her attention to the man, as if nothing had happened, as if I hadn't just witnessed her betrayal in the most intimate of ways. I felt a wave of emotions flood over me: shock, confusion, and disbelief. But beneath it all, I knew what was happening. My wife, the person I trusted, had been seeing someone else. This wasn't some mistake or misunderstanding. It was intentional. The man smiled at Sarah, and they continued their conversation, completely unaware that their secret had been exposed. I inhaled deeply, turned around, and left the cafe without them noticing. My mind, however, was racing with thoughts of how I would respond. I wasn't going to let this go. If Sarah thought she could humiliate me like this and get away with it, she was in for a surprise. Over the next few days, I quietly gathered information. I followed her, observed her, and did everything I could to uncover the truth. Eventually, I learned that the man's name was Mark. He was someone from her yoga class, a person she had become close to over the past few months. The more I uncovered, the angrier I became. But I wasn't ready to confront her yet. I didn't want her to see my pain. No, I was going to make her regret this, and I was going to do it in a way she never expected. The perfect opportunity came a week later. It was a Friday evening, and Sarah had made plans to meet some old college friends for a night out. She told me she was going to have drinks with the girls. I didn't argue. She wouldn't be home, and that gave me the perfect chance to execute my plan. I decided to follow her, knowing she would think I had no idea what was really going on. I trailed her as she drove to a fancy restaurant across town. When she parked, I saw Mark waiting for her on the sidewalk. He greeted her with a kiss on the cheek, and together they walked inside like a couple. My heart raced, but I kept my composure. I made my way to the back of the restaurant, where I found a hidden spot to watch everything unfold. They sat at a corner table, laughing and chatting like they were the only two people in the world. Sarah looked happier than I had seen her in months, and it hit me hard. This wasn't just an affair. She was in love with him. I steeled myself for what was to come. This was my moment. I texted one of Sarah's closest friends, asking her to meet me at the restaurant under the pretense of wanting to talk. She agreed, and when she arrived, unsuspecting, I confronted her. I told her that I knew everything about Sarah, about Mark, about the affair. Her face went white as guilt swept across her features. She tried to deny it, but I already had the proof. That's when I made my move. I asked her to do something for me, to go inside and tell Sarah that I was there and that I knew everything. I wanted Sarah to see me, to realize that her secret was out in the open and that there was no escaping the truth. I wasn't going to let her get away with it. With a resigned look, her friend went inside and delivered the message. I watched through the window as Sarah's face drained of color. She stood up, excused herself from Mark, and stepped outside to find me. When she saw me standing there, she froze. I didn't say a word at first. I let the silence between us speak volumes. Her face turned red with embarrassment, and she tried to explain herself, but I wouldn't listen. I didn't yell or cry. I simply told her that I wasn't going to beg for answers. I didn't need her excuses. What I wanted was for her to understand the damage she had caused, not just to our marriage, but to the trust one had placed in her. Without waiting for a response, I turned and walked away, leaving her standing there, speechless. The following weeks were filled with tension and awkward encounters. Sarah tried to salvage what was left of our marriage, but I wasn't interested. Mentally, I had already moved on, even though emotionally it took longer to let go. But the real surprise came when Mark reached out to me. He called, thinking he could apologize and somehow fix everything. He had no idea what he was dealing with. I let him talk for a while, pretending to entertain his words, before calmly telling him that my anger wasn't directed at him. It was at Sarah. I didn't need him in my life, but I was done with her. The next time he saw her, I hoped he would realize that he wasn't the only one who would have to live with the consequences of her actions.